Well, friends, this is random, but we're going to take a trip through time back to 2018. This was a much simpler time in America, and a viral moment from back then went viral again, and I decided to go down the rabbit hole, and I thought that it'd be fun to take you all with me. Now, keep in mind, these were the pre-COVID days, and I think that a lot of us didn't know how good we had it. I'm not saying that everything was peachy keen, but compared to the 2020s, the 2010s feel almost utopian by comparison. And I'm nostalgic for those days when I still had at least a little bit of hope left in me. I wasn't as cynical, and, revisiting this story kind of conjured up those feelings, and I thought that you all would want to feel the same. But I mean, just to kind of set the stage for you. One thing in this era that I found hilarious was the desperate attempt by Republicans to make it seem as if young people and people of color and LGBTQ plus people were leaving the Democratic Party in droves and migrating over to the Republican Party and supporting Donald Trump. Now, listen, young people being disillusioned with the Democratic Party is nothing new, but the idea that they're falling over themselves to become Trump supporters was indeed hilarious at the time, and it's still pretty funny. Nonetheless, the right manufactured an astroturfed campaign to kind of make it seem as if this was actually happening when it wasn't. You had Candace Owens pushing Blexit to insinuate that Black Americans were becoming Republicans in large numbers. It wasn't true. You also had Brandon Stroka's Walk Away movement, which was, I guess, the gay-friendly version of that. Needless to say, nobody was buying it. If you look at the views from Blexit, they got no views. There was just no traction for these movements. So even though the right is typically good at manufacturing things, they weren't very good here. Brandon Stroka's grift presumably fell apart, given how he had to pivot to a different grift where he was LARPing as a January 6th insurrectionist who was fake crying while Marjorie Taylor Greene pretended to console him. I don't know where this was at. I think it was at ZPAC. Weird shit, I know, but I mean, that's what you've got to do when your original grift falls apart. You've got to get creative and think outside the box, and Brandon thought inside the box. Now, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself because one individual that capitalized on this whole walk away / Blexit phenomenon ended up doing something that inadvertently changed her life in the most profound way imaginable. I'm, of course, referring to Princess Q, who famously tweeted in October of 2018, "I will not hide any longer. The left has made us feel as if Black Republicans should hide, but not anymore. Hashtag Blacks for Trump, hashtag walk away, hashtag MAGA." Now, I remember seeing this come across my Twitter feed at the time, but I didn't really think much about it because you've got to remember, this was a pretty common phenomenon back in 2018. It was the heyday for people like Dave Rubin, Candace Owens, and Blair White, who exploited their identities and threw their own communities under a bus to sanitize the Republican Party's bigotry for a paycheck. So it wasn't automatically suspicious to me. There were no apparent red flags with Princess Q's post. She just kind of looked like another attention-seeking grifter who was trying to capitalize on this fake walk-away / Blexit movement. But of course, that was just the beginning of the story, because after her original post blew up, she decided to use her viral fame to feed into the rights victim complex, specifically so she could cash in. She tweeted after that, "Thank you all so much for your overwhelming support. After seeing this tweet, my parents cut me off and refused to pay my university tuition. So if you can find it in your hearts to help this young Black Republican pay for school, it would be appreciated." She then linked to a GoFundMe, and the donations started to pour in immediately. But her narrative was only just getting started, because she followed up saying, "I'm now getting kicked out. My mother literally woke me up out my sleep and screamed at me, 'How could you support this monster? She doesn't even know him, so how can he be a monster? I just wish they understood." She added, "This morning is getting worse and worse," and she shared screenshots from a text exchange that she had with her mother, where her mother supposedly told her that she has 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live, and says, "Maybe one of those Trumpies that you love so much can take you in. I'm so disappointed in you," and later says, "You have until the 14th, and that's that," and closes by saying, "I have nothing else to say to you. You might as well not be my daughter." Now, the thought of a parent doing this to their own child isn't necessarily unthinkable, because it happens pretty commonly, unfortunately, to children who are gay and trans, but not because they're fucking conservative. So that right there should get the red flags to start to go off in your head. But to the right, they love this because she was giving them the perfect victim narrative that they've been yearning for forever. Right? The idea of a conservative being treated like an LGBTQ plus teen, to them, was perfect. It bolstered this idea that conservatives are being persecuted. And as a result, they thought, this is the person we have to support, because her story is all of our story. She represents all of us. We are as persecuted as her. And what did they do? They raised $150,000 for Princess Q. That's a lot of money. The problem is that the story was complete fucking bullshit. And once Trump supporters started to put together the pieces, it was already too late. And after she duped them into giving her all of that money, she came clean once they already kind of figured it out. And she said, actually, I'm not a Trump supporter at all. In fact, she thinks Republicans are fucking stupid. And to add insult to injury, she didn't even have to buy the MAGA hat that she was wearing. She told Elle magazine that she found it outside and said, I snapped a couple of pictures in it before my head started burning and threw it away. And she explains, the Trumpies saw my old tweets about Obama and realized I might have been lying, but I was faster and took everything before it could be taken from me. Goddamn. In other words, she made out like a bandit. But she also gave Trump supporters a reality check and explained to them that donating to her in specific circumstances where she was useful for their narrative doesn't absolve them of their racism. She says the Republican Party needs black faces, so they throw money at any black person that says they support Trump so that people stop thinking of them as the racist party, but it's never going to happen. They also fail to realize that they don't have to outwardly hate black people to be racist because they still create policies and laws that keep black people poor and unsupported, especially the 3 strikes law that they love to uphold, and it does nothing but send poor black and brown people to jail for the rest of their lives. But we're supposed to ignore that and say that suddenly they're not racist because they paid a black girl's tuition? It's laughable. So to recap, not only did she scam them out of $150,000, she then proceeded to roast the ever-loving shit out of them and call them stupid and racist. Now, needless to say, Trump supporters were not very happy about this, to put it mildly, and she says that they did not hesitate to lob racial slurs at her and call her a wolf for a bitch and whatnot and harass her. But when she was asked by a journalist at Elle why she did this, aside from the money, she explained, voting is coming up, so I just wanted to remind people that Republicans are stupid and shouldn't hold the majority anymore. She continues, minimum wage is pathetically low and it's not a living wage either, so how are we supposed to survive? And then the people who say go to college and get a better job, like anyone can afford that, and it won't guarantee you a job either. She added, imagine if the Republicans had put as much energy into actually helping this country and not lining the pockets of the filthy rich as they do getting their racist image washed. But it's interesting that she made that point because here we are again, not even a decade later, and Republicans are trying to gut Medicaid to line the pockets of the rich even more. It feels like nothing ever changes. But in the end, she did tell New York Magazine that she felt bad and decided to give back all of the money that she got from MAGA. And that was the last that we heard about it. That is, until we got an update this year after she went even more viral again in 2025 for the same story, of course. So somebody posed the question, no gatekeepers, please. What's a side hustle that you feel like more people should know about? And Derek the Style Guy shared her original tweet as well as the story about her MAGA scam, which blew up again and went even more viral than her original post, which led to an update from the legend herself, who says that the $150,000 she got from MAGA helped her to finish college with no debt. On top of that, it also helped her move to Los Angeles and demonstrated her bona fides in social media and marketing psychology, which helped to spearhead her entire career. So this scam literally changed her life for the better. But the question is, how was she able to do all of this if she gave back the money? And the answer is, well, because she didn't actually give back the money. She followed up by saying that she only said that because that narrative was useful so that way MAGA weirdos wouldn't go after her, which makes sense. And that concludes the story of the cleanest, most devious scam in internet history. These days, she's not super political. She's pretty active on TikTok, but she doesn't talk about politics. If you want to follow her, I'll link to her account down below. You know, she only mentioned the scam one time in one video where she says every day she's grateful for her big, beautiful brain, but that's all she said about it lately. So the lesson here is that MAGA is the most gullible group of people ever. And even though her scam was obviously a success, it still pales in comparison to the numerous scams Trump pulled on his own supporters, from Trump University to his meme coin and NFTs and Trump-branded Bibles to his $600 watches that have embarrassing typos. Nobody has scammed MAGA more than Donald Trump himself. And this is why being in a cult is so dangerous, because it gets you to suspend logic and critical thinking, which makes you vulnerable to scams from people within the cult who know that they can easily take advantage of you. So out of all of the times that MAGA has been scammed, at least this one helped a regular person excel in life. It helped her launch her career. So even though Princess Q's plan was comically diabolical, it was undeniably genius, and she pulled it off to fucking perfection and played them like fiddles. So hats off to the legend.
Not only can you take a load, you can take the ultimate load, and even better than that you find your true calling and destiny in your willingness to take the ultimate load. Have it your way, buddy.